Hello everyone, welcome back to Gamer Plays. Today in this video we are going to discuss about how to get chicken dinner in PUBG. There are some tips in this video, make sure to follow them. Let's start. Tip 1, choose where to land very carefully. A game of PUBG can last as long as half an hour or, if things go horribly wrong, it can all be over in a few seconds. One surefire way of exiting early is by misjudging your initial landing spot, which is why it's first on our list of PUBG Mobile tips and tricks. As a general rule of thumb, you want to aim for the best loot spots in the game map you're playing on, while also avoiding as many other players as possible. There are some particular areas that regularly spawn the best weapons and armor, such as the military base, power plant, or the various major towns in the original map Erangel, but bear in mind that other seasoned players will be heading there too. Once you've jumped out of the cargo plane, keep an eye out for swarms of other players heading to a single location and avoid those areas like the plague. Likewise, don't just aimlessly drift. Once you're in freefall, pinpoint a safe enough area, preferably with buildings, so you can grab some loot, and push forward to speed your way there. Buildings will show up as white blocks on the mini-map, so make sure you're heading in the right direction. If you can't see one, you can always open your parachute early and coast over to a decent landing zone. Just be aware that every second you spend in the sky is a second your opponents will be using to scoop up loot. Tip 2, loot first, shoot later. Once you hit the floor, your first priority is gearing up so you don't get clipped in any initial skirmishes. You'll find crucial loot scattered around in buildings and supply crate drops. The latter contain the most sought-after weapons like the insanely powerful AWM sniper rifle, but remember, you won't be the only one hoping to grab the spoils. The most important loot in the early stages is a half-decent weapons, ammo, and some reasonable armor, as well as a backpack upgrade, up to level 3, so you have room for better gear as you start exploring. Any gun is better than your fists or even the legendary PUBG frying pan, so grab any nearby firearms before engaging a foe. Armor is also crucial so you can take more hits in a firefight. Like the backpack, head and body armor is graded from level 1 to 3, but level 3 armor is fairly rare. Aim for level 2 armor before picking a scrap, or level 1 at a bare minimum. Health items are also a priority. First aid kits are preferable, but bandages, painkillers, and the like will all help in a pinch. Thrown items like grenades will become more important later on as an offensive or distraction tool once the player count has diminished, but don't be afraid to throw an explosive surprise if you come across an unsuspecting group early on. Tip 3, only shoot when you're in range. This is the ultimate rookie error and it'll get you killed more than anything else in PUBG Mobile. Deciding when to hide and when to attack is a tricky balancing act, but you should never ever open fire unless you know your weapon has a chance of hitting the target. While knowing when you're in range will take some practice for complete newcomers, if you have any experience with PvP shooters you'll already have a fair understanding of the basics. Shotguns, especially the awesome S12K, and SMGs are useful for up-close burst damage, assault rifles and pistols are good for mid-range fights, and sniper rifles are perfect for long-distance pot shots. Tip 4, keep an eye on the map. In PUBG, the only safe area lies within the circle. This circle will begin to shrink at select times during the match, and if you find yourself outside of it for too long, you'll eventually die. The damage you take in this electrified blue field will increase as the circle shrinks. Early on you'll be fine for a few minutes, while in the very final stage you won't last more than 10 seconds. Each new circle will show on your map as a white outline, so if you watch your map you'll always know where to go next. There's no need to rush in the early phases, but towards the end you'll need to get moving to avoid death while also trying to steer clear of other players who will be doing the same thing. You should always be trying to remain in cover where possible, but if you do need to move quickly and with purpose. The mini-map also has one final trick up its sleeve that you absolutely need to look out for, a fire indicator. If you hear gunfire in your vicinity, have a quick glance at the map and it'll show exactly where it's coming from. Tip 5, wheels are better than legs. Vehicles are littered all around each of the game's maps, but you'll find them most commonly near the larger cities and on the main roads. Unfortunately, while there are plenty of vehicles to go around, there's also up to 99 other players potentially looking to get behind the wheel too, so be sure it's safe before approaching. The motorcycle and buggy are both great for zipping to the next play area but will leave you relatively exposed. Larger vehicles like the Jeep will be slower but are great for carrying around 4 players with a nice amount of protection. Tip 6. Hide and peek. PUBG games almost always end with a tiny group of fighters lying around on the floor hoping someone else pops their head up first. That person usually gets domed immediately, by the way, so make sure it isn't you. Going fully prone in PUBG is an important maneuver, so much so that it has its own dedicated button. It's also a double-edged sword, however, as while you'll get a nice recoil and accuracy boost and generally be a little more hidden, mobility is almost non-existent. If someone approaches you from behind while you're on your chest, you're almost definitely going to end up dead, especially if you're looking through a scope at the same time. Keep an eye on your mini-map and the surroundings before hitting the floor, and don't be afraid to flank your opponents when they're lying down. When out in the open, taking advantage of rocks and the sides of buildings for cover can be a much safer alternative. What PUBG doesn't tell you is that you can actually peek around the side of cover without exposing your squishy limbs, but to do that you'll have to take a quick trip to the settings greater than basic menu. Simply toggle peek and fire to enable, and you'll be able to peer around corners. Just be aware that you're far from invulnerable when doing this, as your head will lean with you, but you'll be a much smaller target. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video then please leave a like and consider subscribing. See you next time.